I've failed both in the fitness industry and as an online coach, or have I? To explain, let's go for a quick trip down memory lane and rewind to 2022. I was working in Iceland, I was 20 years old, and COVID had just finished, which is an important note to make. Because with it finishing, my aspirations within retail did too. My favourite colleagues left for proper jobs, there was no longer a clear path for progression past being a deputy manager anytime soon, and I suddenly found myself in a bit of a crisis, desperately trying to find out what I wanted to do with my life. After all, I certainly didn't grow up wanting to work in a supermarket, I did well in school, and I didn't want to feel like I was settling. So I decided to try and make my biggest passion and my favourite hobby into a career. Paid £3,000, spent 6 months studying, and before I knew it, I was a fully qualified PT and naively started my personal training career. But to be honest, looking back, I didn't stand a chance. Because whilst I knew the theory and knew how the bicep worked, I didn't know how to run a business, how to attract and get clients, and I didn't actually get to all the main things I needed to know to become successful as a PT. Meaning that after about 6 months of working for Pure Gym, cleaning treadmills, paying nearly £600 a month for rent, and only having about 6 paying clients, I felt like an absolute failure and was tempted to sack it in, but was also desperate to not have to go back to Iceland with my tail between my legs and ask for the shit job I hated back. So I asked my managers at Pure Gym for advice, which is when they introduced me to potentially diversify my revenue and going online, which I had no clue how to do, but they pointed me in the direction of a mentorship. For just £5,000, I'd get 12 months of mentoring, and by the end of it, they guaranteed I'd be earning £3,000 a month online. So desperate to stop being absolutely broke, I invested in it. Who wouldn't? And that leads me on to chapter 2, which is actually starting my online business. And to be honest, looking back, I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I just paid £5,000 to this mentorship, so that didn't matter. I was going to follow what they told me to do religiously. So that consisted of following literally hundreds of people on Instagram a day, DMing pretty much anyone and everyone I could, using influencers to try and get followers, and then also using those shit posts that you see all the time. It's like, I'm looking for 5 women who want to lose fat. I'm opening up 2 spaces for X, Y, or Z, and everything like that. I just had to use all these sort of shitty tactics, really. And they also literally told me who to work with, which in this case was middle-aged women who wanted to lose fat, because it was the biggest market. I know it makes me cringe. I hated doing this stuff ethically, but I had a £5,000 hole in my pocket and I was desperate to get it back. And to be fair, to an extent, it worked. I went from having no money online to making about £2,000 a month from my laptop in the time of working with them. But by the end of the 12 months, I was so fed up of constantly going against my morals and ethics. I had a client list that 80% of I didn't really want to work with, and I hated feeling like I was embarrassing myself on Instagram, desperately trying to get clients. And as a result, I quit working with them. They did give me my £5,000 back as I had proof of doing everything they told me. But with quitting working with them, I realized I'd basically built my business on a foundation of quicksand, with the tactics and general approach being the base of that foundation. And with no longer doing these shitty short-term tactics and spamming people endlessly, my business started crumbling. Revenue halved within a couple of months, and I quickly realized I needed help again to sort things out and start laying a foundation of concrete. And so I started working with someone new, and he helped me tremendously by helping me to steady the ship, move away from these terrible tactics, and it made me realize that getting to where I wanted to be was going to take a long time, and much longer than the 12 months that the first mentorship told me about. Testing. How does this look? And although that backstory doesn't quite bring us to where we are at this current moment in time, I wanted to show you a visual of where I started to where I am now, and also where I want to be in future. So if we say that this is where I started my first sort of like online coaching and everything like that, I didn't really know anything about coaching. I wasn't very competent, didn't know how to do content, didn't know how to market, email right, do sales calls or anything like that. And this was the position that I thought I feel like I started in. And now a couple of years later, this is the position that I feel like I'm in, and the amount of progress that I've seen over those last couple of years. And even though it doesn't look like a lot in terms of like my levels of like competency, my knowledge, and also like running my business, I am significantly better than what I was beforehand. However, I am still a long way away from where I want to be, as you can see. And the only thing that is going to plug that sort of difference in from there to here is time. Let's do some research. Whilst I would consider myself a good coach and one that is better than a lot of them that are out there, I eventually want to be one of the best coaches in terms of the service I provide, the results I get, and the knowledge I possess. So let's have a look at how long it takes in a normal industry to become one of the best within it. So I have Googled the following. How long does it take to become a fully qualified doctor? How long does it take to become a pilot? And how long does it take to become a chartered accountant? From what I can see, it says it's going to take about 10 to 16 years of study and practice to become a doctor. It takes 18 to 24 months of full-time studying, or 2 to 5 years of part-time studying, and a great amount of cost incurred to become a pilot. And it is going to take about 3 to 5 years from what I can see to become a chartered accountant. I don't know if that needs a degree beforehand or not. Either way, I was led to believe that over the course of just 12 months, I could go from having 0 online clients to making more than a newly qualified pilot through sending some DMs, following shit tons of people, and producing shit content like this. In some sort of cult dieting scheme or starting a fad diet, watch this video. I hate and don't agree with most dieting schemes, and I also hate fad diets. And yes, that does make me cringe, but that's genuinely not even the worst of it. So after coaching now for nearly 3 years and being significantly better than I was at the start, I've realized it's still going to take a long time to build the business I want, and in the way I want to build it too. I realized I want to improve my skills, my knowledge, and my overall competency, and I also want to lead by example and be a real authority. But I realized that's also going to take a long time and also a lot of investment too. And instead of being completely dependent on coaching as my only form of income, I decided that doing a 9 to 5 with coaching alongside it will be better for me both immediately and in the long term as well. Taking my financial dependence away from coaching, enabling me to coach clients more effectively without fear of them dropping off, producing the content that I actually want to without constantly overthinking it and worrying about it getting me clients. And it's also going to enable me to be much more selective with the people I work with instead of taking anyone and everyone on, because I've got bills to pay. However, it does also mean I am going to have to wear a shirt like this and commute for longer than from my bed to my desk. And I am also going to have to wear these fresh Clark shoes. And I don't think I've worn Clark shoes since I was maybe in like year 4. For a long time, I've thought about getting a job to take the pressure off, but never did due to fear of looking like a failure. But to be completely honest, I probably never should have fully committed to being fully online. I was just naive, desperate, and trusting the first mentorship I belonged to. But now looking back, I know that it was far too early to fully commit, and I should have waited, but I didn't know any better. I found I always used to compare to other coaches and feel jealous that they were doing better, or annoyed at myself for not being better than I am. And that's also something I find with clients who compare themselves to my other clients who are getting better results. But that's where it's important to remember, and I remind myself of how far I've come over the last few years and through the journey of being self-employed. I started off pretty much completely incompetent, and through years of trying my best, failing over and over again, making mistakes again and again, and spending hours working from my bedroom, I'm now miles better than I was at the start. I've learned so much through the process, and although I do have some regrets about fully committing to it as early on as I did, I'm glad I gave it a go. But for now, it's going to be a period of change and adjustment as I get used to working a 9 to 5 in an office with a long-term vision of becoming the best coach I can and leading by example. I'm now genuinely thinking in multiple years and potentially even decades. And over them, I'm going to focus on manufacturing the future I want both personally and business-wise instead of just manifesting it.